Hello. I wonder what your favourite book is. You know, the one that you keep going back to time and time again. That book with the bent pages and the distinctive smell. The one with the characters that draw you in and the story you could get lost in for days. Or maybe that's just me. It might be that we were first intrigued by this book because it was recommended by a friend, or we saw its gorgeous cover on a bookshelf. Perhaps we'd heard about it through a prestigious prize, or it's on one of those top 100 book lists to read before you die. However, we first came about this book, chances are it won't be the reason we keep on revisiting it. Stories speak to us, and I'm sure that whatever book you chose, it was because there was something within it that connected with you. And within life, we also have these stories which connect with us through our histories and through our memories. Stories which make us laugh and make us cry. Stories which are told again and again and again. Stories which are known to us and stories which are forgotten. Stories which write the script for how we act and feel and think and respond and behave. Stories whose words impact us both negatively and positively. Stories which define our very being, which, unless we're aware of the words on the page, could change the chapters still to be written. I wonder if you have any of these stories in your own lives. Like the time your heart was broken, or you were flooded with joy, the moment when you were disappointed or angry or downcast, or the moment when time stood still. That chapter you wish you could forget, or the chapter that you had hoped would have just lasted a little longer. These parts of our history shape and define us. They're what tell us how to react should the same thing happen again, and so they are a gift to us. But they can also get us stuck. They can imprison us and serve us with unexpected guilt and sorrow and shame from time to time. But there's a story which can change all this. A story and a word which defines all other words and all other stories, all other moments had. It's a word which can bring freedom and forgiveness. And Paul in the book of Acts knows this word firsthand. He's experienced its transformative power to change the script and direction of his life. Paul was once a man so bound by rules that he would hate another just to keep to them. He found himself defined by chapter upon chapter of fear and exile and occupation. And then one day his eyes were opened to see the fear and the pain that he'd been living in and had therefore caused others to live in. And a word was spoken to him, and he found himself connected with the source of all love and bound instead of rules by grace. And this word came from the mouth of the one who spoke all things into existence and whose story is our story and our story is to be found in their story. And this word is known to us in the person of Jesus. And in that moment, Paul, who was known as Saul, saw all things through the lens and the story of Jesus, and he was freed because of it. And he spent his whole life moving and forward, telling others about this freedom. And our reading for today is found in Acts chapter 13, verses 13 to 35. And it shows us a moment in Paul's life where he does exactly this. He finds himself in a synagogue, having just heard the shared history through the stories of his ancestors, through the teachings of the prophets and the law. And he stands up and he addresses his peers. He finds himself interpreting these stories, these histories and these events which have shaped those who are currently sat in front of him in the light of the word of Jesus. He reminds those who are listening of God's faithfulness and God's provision, God's blessing and God's redemption, God's transformative power and presence, and does so through noting where goodness can be seen and pointing to Jesus. He said, "Remember all that goodness that we've just seen. All that was glimpsed there can be seen in its entirety in Jesus. and the connection that we crave, the suffering that we endured, and the death which came can all be transformed and has been transformed. And this transformation is one which will last forever and will set you free. One of my favourite stories is that of creation. And we're told here in the Hebrew that when God creates the world, he did so out of an empty, confused wasteland. It's a void which holds no meaning, and yet out of it comes life and goodness. In this story, words carry meaning and they change things. They transform and give substance to that which previously had no meaning and no substance. A phrase which our Jewish brothers and sisters use to describe God in this moment is Hal Semar Setzat Kum, the God who wastes nothing. It reveals a deep truth that Paul is speaking of here, that no matter our past histories and stories, no matter how our lives have panned out, those scripts which we feel rule our lives, Jesus is to be found as a faithful presence throughout, bringing us through and wasting nothing of it to bring about goodness and life in the now and into the future. Today, I wonder what stories you've lived by, what chapters you felt have been wasted, those words which have shaped who you are. I wonder if you're able to see where Jesus celebrated those or sat with you in them, or if you can hear any words he may have spoken to you in that time, or the comfort and unease of the silence you perhaps experienced. You might want to pause here, just that you're able to bring these stories to mind. As we draw to a close, I wonder if today you're able to hear another word from Jesus. I'm going to spend a few moments saying a few words which Jesus speaks to us. They're all phrases to be found in the Bible, and so when one takes your attention, again you might want to just pause the video to give yourself time to ruminate over what these words might mean to you, to really dwell with the word who has the power to transform where you find yourself and the stories which have led you to this point. So take time now to hear from Jesus another word for you today. Take courage. It is I. Do not be afraid. I am with you till the end of the age. Do not let your hearts be troubled. I am the resurrection and the life. Your faith has saved you. I did not come to call the righteous, but sinners. Come and see. Follow me. Peace be with you. This week, may we know the redemptive power of Jesus' words, which are spoken kindly to us, so that we might recognise the presence of a God who wastes nothing and transforms everything. Amen.